Okay, get yourself seated onto a cushion, just on some blocks, just to give yourself a little extra elevation so the cross legs is more comfortable and you can lift the chest more effectively. So just sit yourself in a cross leg position. Just have a little wriggle about, make sure that you're sitting evenly with an even base. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Just look down at the floor, look at something that isn't moving. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Just allowing your eyes to settle on the floor. Just focus on filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And emptying your lungs from the top to the bottom. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. So drawing the hands away from the chest, just to keep the chest moving in and upwards and outwards. So lengthening from the armpits into the elbows. And then allow your eyes to gently close. Focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and then exhalations. Just focusing your mind on the breath. So sometimes the mind can feel distracted. Try to draw it inwards by following the breath. Feeling the body's physiological response to taking in the air. How the diaphragm lowers and flattens and the intercostal muscles expand to accommodate the inhalation. And as you exhale, how the diaphragm rises, the intercostal muscles relax, the chest lowers to accommodate the exhalation. So while the breath is an involuntary action, albeit deeply necessary, we rarely pay attention to the breath. But drawing our focus in on the breath just permits us a little connection into the physical body. It draws us into the present moment because the breath is happening now. And just like the flicker of a flame, every breath is entirely unique. So we learn to celebrate the breath, because the breath is worth celebrating, because without the breath there is no life. So there is a saying in yoga that we are not allotted a number of days, minutes, hours that we live for. We are allotted a number of breaths, and it's how we spend those breaths that determines the duration of our life. So if we learn to appreciate the breath, if we learn to breathe deeply and slowly, we make the most of each and every single breath. And as a result of deep, slower inhalation and exhalation, the heart will beat more slowly, the blood pressure will be lower, and the body is under less stress. So it stands to reason that the breath is our key to greater longevity. Gently draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area, and then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. Connect the index finger to the thumb and stretch the other fingers away from the palm of the hand. Just a gesture of wisdom and peacefulness that we can bring into our practice and take into our lives. With an exhalation, allow your head to raise, allow your eyes to open, and then hold onto your knees. Elevate your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose, feeling how you expand the rib cage with the breath, and then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, just again observing the sensations of the pose, observing the resistance, observing how the feet connect to the ground, how the seat bones connect to the ground. Is there balance in that floor grounding? So aim for balance. Balance between the seat bones, balance between the action of the feet. So we often think of the feet as passive at this stage. Can you activate and flex the heel so that the feet become more significant in the balance of the pose? Draw the abdomen across the ribs and the shoulders, and then come back to the center. Elevate the heart area upwards, and then turn to the left. Again, just flexing the heels so that you really activate them. Observe the balance of the seat bones, feeling that they are even. If they're not even, then just adjust the position of the torso so that it becomes more even. So that you're in control of your balance, your evenness. And then come back to the center. Just stretch your legs out and just get your belt. Just shuffle off stay seated on the lift, but just release the backs of the legs from the lift so that you can stretch your legs out more effectively. Hook the belt around the feet and have the feet hip width apart. And then lengthen from the seat bones into your heels. Feeling that the backs of the thighs are free to lengthen away from the seat bones into the backs of the knees. Activate the fronts of the thighs, pressing, flexing the fronts of the thighs, pressing them up towards the top of the leg and down into the thigh bone. Activate the kneecaps, pressing the kneecaps firmly into the floor. Activate the shins, pressing the shins firmly into the floor. When you activate your shins, you can stretch the heels away a little more. Push the feet into the belt and using the belt, roll onto the front edge of the seat bones. So that pelvic tilt, roll onto the front edge of the seat bones, and then elevate from the abdomen to the diaphragm to the heart area, drawing the shoulders down. So just feel that your legs and your torso and your arms and your head are engaged in the pose. It starts with the legs, because all spinal extension has to start with the legs. So really press the thighs down, press the backs of the knees into the floor, press the fronts of the knees into the backs of the knees, press the shins into the floor, turn the fronts of the shins inwards, turn the inner knees down towards the floor, rotate the fronts of the thighs inwards, roll onto the front edge of the seat bones, lift up into the chest. Breathing even and deep inhalations and exhalations. And then drop the belt, but keep the legs working and then raise your arms up. So do the arms feel heavy, or can you reactivate your legs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones, lifting up into the little finger side, so have the palms facing each other. Little fingers up towards the ceiling, stretch the thumbs towards the back of the room. And then bring the palms to face the front and stretch the fingers behind you. So you press the heels of the hands up into the sky. So it's dog down, just not upside down. Press the legs into the floor, turn the thighs. Roll onto the front edge of the seat bones. Lift up into the chest. And then release your arms. Just come into cross legs for a moment. Just observe how just lifting the chest, extending into the legs, releases your energy a little. And then just one more time, turn to the right, drawing your abdomen across, the ribs and your shoulders, keeping the neck soft. and then come back to the centre. Take a deep inhalation, and then on the subsequent exhalation turn to the left. And then come back to the centre. So when you're stretching your legs out, perhaps, just need to pause for a second, when you're stretching your legs out, perhaps it was easier to activate your legs because you could push your legs into the floor. But maybe it was more difficult to activate the arms because they were raised up into the air. It was almost like there was no resistance. So just stretch your arms up, sit back on your heels, stretch your arms up. Push the heels of the hands up to the ceiling, stretch the fingers towards the back of the room. So there's no resistance to the arms. There's resistance in the legs because the floor is there, so you can activate the shins really firmly, pressing them really firmly into the floor. You can press the big toes together, you can draw the heels apart, and that resistance gives you a real sense of where the pose starts and progresses. When you're kind of release your arms. When you float up into the air, it's more difficult. There's no kind of air, the air resistance isn't strong enough. So bring your hands onto the floor. Have your little finger on the edge of the mat, stretch the thumbs towards each other, step back, turn your toes under. So now there is the resistance of the floor. And we can push our arms deeply into the floor. We can press the feet into the floor and lift away from the floor. So although there is no resistance in the seat bones, we can tilt those up because of the floor telling us where our hands are, telling us where our feet are. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Press the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Press the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knee. Press the fronts of the shins through to the backs of the calves, and turn those shins inwards, turn the thighs inwards, and then lift the seat bones up. So it's the equivalent of rolling onto the front edge of the seat bones when we were sitting down. So using the resistance of the floor, you can push into the floor with the arms, activating the arms with more energy, lengthening from the armpits up into the hips. So connect with the floor. Use the floor's resistance to lift up to the ceiling. Okay, step your feet forwards. Just come up into a standing position and have a couple of blocks for your hands for half uttanasana, and then have your feet as wide apart as your mat, turning your toes inwards, spreading the toes, lifting up into the chest. So again, just use the resistance of the floor. Press the feet consciously into the floor. So we often think about kind of lifting out of the floor, but in order for that to be effective, we've got to really feel how we connect with the floor. So even though you can't see your feet, feel how they connect with the ground. Have your hands on your hips, wing your elbows back, and then come forwards, hinging at the hips, lifting the seat bones away from the backs of the thighs, drawing the front rim of the pelvis in towards the top, the fronts of the thighs, and then reach down, find the blocks. So now there is floor resistance for the hands, even though we're kind of raising the floor up a little, there is resistance for the feet. So press into the floor and then lift up and out of the ground. the energy of growth, of a seedling germinating and then reaching up to the source of existence. Extending out of the earth, growing with energy up towards the sun. But at the same time, it receives its nutrients from the ground. So it develops roots that give it strength to grow upwards. So the ground is as important as the energy of the sun. Just come down a little lower if you can, or just stay at the higher lift if you've got a bad back. Just stay on fingertips. Just feel that you can connect with that energy of growth, lifting out of the floor, but all the time paying due reverence to the ground, because it's what sustains us, what maintains our balance. If you can reach down to the floor, then do. Again, just acknowledging the resistance of the floor. So push the hands into the floor and then lift from the palms up into the wrists, into the elbows, into the armpits. If you can reach around the backs of your heels, then do, but not at the expense of rounding your back. See if you can come forwards with a straight back, keeping the chest lifted. So you can pull against the feet, finding your own interior resistance. Keep the feet in deep contact with the floor and lift out of the floor. And then release your hands, just come into halfway to half uttanasana. And then bring your hands into your hips and then bend your knees and then come up into tadasana. Just have the inner edge of your feet together, big toes touching, heels touching, and really spread the toes, really spread the underside of the foot. Just looking forwards, but feel how the feet connect to the ground. Press the feet into the ground and lift the shins out of the feet. The kneecaps away from the shins, the thighs away from the kneecaps and up into the hip socket. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Stretch your arms forwards and then raise your arms up in vrksasana. So lengthen up into the fingertips as though you could reach the ceiling. Unfortunately, I can reach the ceiling, so that's a bit restrictive. But the thing with vrksasana is that it relies on the feet to know where the hands are going. Just bring the arms down and interlock the fingers in to baddangulyasana, and then turn the palms all the way out. And then raise your arms, and maybe suddenly you can find that resistance with the arms. The arms are working with each other and against each other. So try and keep the interlock secure, but try and prise the hands apart. Activating the armpit region of the arms. Release your arms, swap the interlock of the fingers. Just relax for a second. Just let the body just soften. Observe how your energy changes. And maybe your body becomes heavier on your feet. And then reactivate from the toes, extending away from the heels, from the shins, hitting back so that your weight is in your heels, the shins turning inwards, the kneecaps tightening, the inner knees rotating towards the back of the room, the fronts of the thighs rotating, pressing into the fronts of the thighs. Push the inner knees away from each other and lift the inner knees up to the groin. Lift from the hips up into the armpits, stretch your arms away with a different interlock this time, and then raise your arms up. Just feel how the feet feel planted, and the body has the energy of growth, reaching up towards the sun. And then gently release, come back into Tadasana, lifting up into the chest. Turn the palms all the way out, rotating the upper arms in the sockets. Just lifting up into the chest, so lots of Tadasana. Just placing the feet mentally on the ground and lifting out of them. Spread the toes deeply of the left foot, bring the right leg up, and keeping that standing leg straight, bring the foot up and into the thigh. So if you need somewhere to help you to support yourself, then just use a wall or a chair or post. And then just before you raise your arms, just lift up into the chest. Go back to the foot. Feel the foot on the ground. Push the foot into the ground. And then lift up that growth, that energy of growth. Raising the arms up, Urdhva Hastasana arms. Bring the arms down, interlock the fingers, baddangulyasana hands, and then raise the arms up, trying to prise the hands apart, but activating that interlock firmly. Letting the breath be even and deep, softening the jaw and the tongue and the throat. And then release, just look at the interlock of the fingers, release the leg. So next time do the interlock with the other index finger on the stack, on the top of the stack. Just come into Tadasana, and if you can, just raise your shorts up in anticipation and just come back into Tadasana. Just again finding the groundedness of the feet. Lifting out of the feet, up into the legs. Keeping the standing leg straight. Bring the left foot as high up into the thigh as you can. Just using whatever you need to just ascertain your balance. Lift up into the chest, feel the foot on the ground, and find that energy of growth upwards. Interlock your fingers the unnatural way, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms. Keeping the interlock secure, but almost trying to prise the hands apart from each other to activate the armpit chest, the armpit arms. opening up the armpits. Just feeling the security of the floor, pressing down into it, growing up into the sky. And then release. Just bring the foot down and then come back into Tadasana. Just feeling how the feet reconnect. So sometimes it's almost easier to balance on one leg than on two, because on two legs, both legs are constantly working to overcome fluctuations in balance. Feel that the feet connect into the ground and lift out of the feet up into the legs, feeling that energy of growth up into the chest, into the arms, into the neck. Bring your arms out in towards the chest and then step, jump, the feet nice and wide. Turn the left toes in, right leg and foot all the way out, and then just feel the feet on the floor. So just feel whether the feet are in the appropriate alignment. So the heels in line with each other, or can you bring this front leg forwards a little so that the heel lines up with the instep? Just have a quick look and adjust if necessary. Press the feet into the floor, lift out of the floor, into the legs, up into the hips, up into the spine. And then maintain that connection as you come over. Turning the chest up to the ceiling. Breathing even. Deep inhalations. Don't lose that back leg. Maintain the back leg, lifting out of the feet, up into the legs, up into the hips, into the spine. And then come back to the center. Swap the feet around. Turn the right toes in and the left leg and foot all the way out, maintaining that foot alignment and that deep connection with the ground. Press the feet into the floor. Feel like they're almost flippers, and you press them into the floor, lift out of the feet, up into the legs, into the hips, into the spine, into the arms, into the head. And then maintain that foot-mindedness as you come over to the right side, to the left side. Making good connection between the heel of the hand and the shin, but not collapsing onto that, reaching up into the top hand. Feel the feet on the floor and lift. Find that energy of growth from the floor up into the legs, up into the hips, into the spine, into the arms, into the head. And then come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, come back into Tadasana. So one of the things about yoga is that we try to find the correct or appropriate alignment within the pose, but it's also about finding the pose's direction. And the pose's direction is typically upwards, out of the floor, almost defying gravity. Bring your feet hip width apart, turn your toes in. If you've got a problem with your back, then come halfway, bring your hands onto the wall or onto the back of a chair. Otherwise, hinge at the hips. Sorry, bring the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, hinge at the hips, keep the front chest lifted, and then hang down. And then come back up. And then raise your arms back up. And then press the feet into the floor. Feel how they connect with the ground and find that energy of growth. And this time, extend into the spine. Hinging at the hips, lifting out of the feet into the hips, into the spine. And just observe how perhaps that felt more grounded. So don't lose the connection of the floor. Feel the floor's resistance. Try and push through the floor and lift out of the floor. And then release your hands down to the floor. Bring your hands into your hips. And then come back up into Tadasana. Just observe that lift of the chest. Observe the connection with the ground, the growth direction, the lightness in the chest and in the arms. And then come down onto your knees. Just have your hands shoulder width apart, step back a little, turn your toes under, and then push your hands into the floor. Press your feet into the floor and lift out of the arms up into the seat bones. Lift out of the feet and into the seat bones, into the hips. Maybe you could press the palms into the floor and lift the seat bones. Press the feet into the floor and lift the tailbone. Feel that connection with the ground. Push into the ground. And from that push, you can lift up to the ceiling. And then come down onto your knees. Just lift up into the chest. Just observe your energy, the lightness of your energy, while maintaining the connection of your feet in the ground. Lift up into the heart area and then come forwards into Adho Mukha Virasana. Aiming to ground the seat bones onto the heels. If you can't, then put a block between the seat bones and the heels. Stretch into your arms. Spread the palms. Just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. And then just bring your arms to the sides of the body and rest yourself down into the floor so that the direction is into the floor. But there should be a firm pressure on the forehead, which helps to quieten the brain. If it becomes too heavy, however, then just consciously lengthen from the shoulders and into the fingertips. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, push your hands into the floor, and then come up into a seated position. Just get a couple of blocks or a cushion, and then just come into virasana, sitting back on the cushion or the blocks. So again, feel the connection of the ground with the shins. Feel how the shins connect to the ground. Maybe the middle of the shin doesn't connect with the ground very firmly. Maybe the bottom of the shin, maybe the top of the shin, but the middle of the shin maybe not. So consciously press the shin bone into the shin skin so that you so that you really activate the shins and you activate the thighs. Again, it's pushing into the floor so that we can lift out of it. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock your fingers, turn the palms all the way up, maintaining that distinct consciousness of the legs in the floor. Lifting up into the chest, and then turn to the right side. And then come back to the centre and turn to the left. Keeping the connection to the ground really conscious so that we're working with the direction of growth upwards. And then release the arms, interlock the fingers so that the other index finger is on the top. Turn the palms all the way out. Action in the shins and turn into the right. Parsva, virasana. Come back to the centre. Turn to the left. Just again engaging with that direction of growth. And then release your arms, just rest the backs of the hands on the thighs for a moment, the palms facing upwards, just rest in your arms, just allowing the body to relax for a moment. Just feeling the energy in the arms and in the shoulders and in the chest. And then just come up onto your knees, just stretch yourself out, and then come down onto the mat. If you've got a bolster nearby, then you can use that for viparita karanhi. If you don't, you can just stretch your legs up in the air like this. But if you've got a bolster or some cushions or just a folded blanket, put that underneath the lower back, and then bend your knees, come right onto the tops of your shoulders, and then elevate your legs up to the ceiling. Again, just observing where the body connects to the ground. Now it's upside down this time, isn't it? So it's the shoulders and the arms that provide that resistance so that you can lift the legs, pushing the direction of growth into the feet. So we're balancing out the energy in the body by reversing its direction. Maintaining that direction of growth. And then bend your knees. Bring your feet onto the bolster. Just stay with your feet on the ground with the bolster underneath you for a moment. Just take some deep inhalations and exhalations. Just feeling that lightness of your energy. Feeling how the body connects to the floor. Okay, and then lift the seat bones, just slide the bolster away. Just bring yourself down onto the floor. You can keep the bolster from underneath the backs of your thighs or the backs of your knees. Just make sure you're in a good straight line by coming up onto your elbows. And then if your head rolls back, get a blanket for underneath your head. If you're wearing glasses, just take them off, just allowing the face to relax. And then release into the floor. Just let the legs completely relax. Let the chest release into the ground. Just feel how the body connects to the floor. Observe how your energy radiates out from the bones and into the muscles and into the organs. Into the flesh and the skin. use your breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness down into the toes, into the fingers, and into the top of the head. And then just wriggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Bring yourself back into this pose of shavasana. And then just bend your knees, bring your feet onto the bolster if it's there, or just pull the knees in towards the chest. Draw the knees into it. Everyone draw your knees into your chest. Have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position. Come back into cross legs, just a final cross legs with the hands in Namaste. Draw your breath in through your nose and down into the abdomen, closing the eyes. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning. A good, positive, clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. Index finger and the thumb in contact, stretching the fingers away from the palms, just a gesture of wisdom and peacefulness that we can take into our everyday life. And then raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open, and the focus to softly come back. Thank you for joining me. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy. Maybe you've identified the direction of growth. So have a good day. Thank you for joining me.